Health is not politics, and death is not a debate. Yet in Kiambu County, leaders are busy arguing over numbers while babies die. Oh, it's not 156 or 136 or whatever figure others have quoted. We have reduced a serious matter of death to splitting hairs and quibbling over numbers? So, Governor, what is the right number? How many babies must die before you call this a crisis? Governor Wamatangi, what is the acceptable threshold of death in your county?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your greatest support. Fellow Kenyans, let me first start by asking this question. Are we living in a country, a county, or a village? Because you can't literally tell me that the things that are happening within our country or the things that are happening in this country should happen to any country. You don't even hear them happening somewhere. Now, on Jamila's memo during the news gang, I'm doing this video specifically. I want us to get our information from the news gang that just happened yesterday night between Jamila, Kaikai, Sam Gituku, and Yvon Okwara. Bonyo was not around, so I've picked some of their kickers, the memos, the kickers, and all that. And when I listened to Jamila was making some very sensible statement that I would like us to listen to before we get deeper into this discussion. I want us to listen to Jamila, and then we talk about what she was referring to. Listen to this.
On my memo tonight, what message exactly does a government send when its senior representatives take part in political campaigns of a neighboring country? Well, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen recently crossed the border and campaigned for President Yoweri Museveni in Sebe, eastern Uganda. I'm just wondering, and of course this is just wild imagination, what if President Museveni lost the election? How would the Kenyan government, which campaigned for him in eastern Uganda, relate with the unlikely new president of Uganda? Would it start with an apologetic note verbal? Luckily, Ugandan presidential elections have produced few surprises in nearly 40 years. So the Kenyan government can safely campaign in eastern Uganda. But it was not safe in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, for two Kenyans, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who crossed the same border to support opposition leader Bobi Wine. Unlike CS Murkomen, who campaigned for President Museveni, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo were not safe turning up to support opposition leader Bobi Wine. They were abducted and taken away, and their whereabouts remain unknown. Now, as a regional trailblazer in multi-party politics, Kenyan campaigns in Uganda would have been laudable if it was about exporting the good and not our bad manners. The Kenyan campaign team in eastern Uganda shamelessly fronted ethnic ties to a local community there, the Sebe. It was a region-specific assignment inspired by ethnicity, not ideology. It was such a Kenyan outing. One speaker even told the Sebe crowd to support Museveni now and in 2027 to return home and vote for President Ruto. And yet, if there was anything to discuss in Uganda, it should not have been the politics of tribe. It should have been the politics of principle. The conversation could have risen higher to trade, governance, or regional integration. In fact, colors should have been a uniting factor. The yellow of UDA and the yellow of NRM could have been a starting point for ideas. But instead, we reduced the cross-border moment to a neighborhood affair, an ethnic performance dressed up as politics. And why didn't the Kenyan campaign experts explore, say, the Buganda region, where President Museveni's opponent holds sway? Meanwhile, as Murkomen's team campaigned freely in eastern Uganda, the two other Kenyans disappeared in the west, the only mistake being on the opposition side of Uganda's political divide. The irony? The same cabinet secretary who crossed the border unbothered to campaign for one side now heads the ministry that should be asking what happened to the two men who crossed to campaign for the other. Sometimes our politics is not just careless, it's cruel in its contradictions. Because if it was right for Murkomen to campaign for Museveni, then surely it cannot be wrong for Njagi and Oyo to support Bobi Wine. Democracy doesn't stop at the border, neither should accountability. In biblical terms, this is an invitation to Interior CS Murkomen, who campaigned in eastern Uganda, to be a brother's keeper for Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who campaigned in western Uganda. And that is my memo.
Now, fellow Kenyans, I would like to ask this question before we continue, because there are a lot of things that I would like us to listen to. Something that has been said by Linus Kaikai. Before we talk about Kaikai's kicker, there is a statement that Kaikai made here, which I would like us to listen to. But before that, let me just quickly ask this question. This is my question. This is the question that I would like to ask. Very simple one. So you want to tell me, like this okay, explain to me. A friend of mine normally normally tells me that, Boni, can you explain to me this thing like a kindergarten kid, someone who has never gone to school? So I would like you to explain to me this at the comment section. Somebody who does not understand English, or maybe who is not conversant with what is being said here, or what people like Murkomen did. So Murkomen went to campaign for Museveni in Uganda. Murkomen alitoka Kenya, akapita boda, akaenda kumkampeinia Museveni Uganda. Uganda. Hey. And then Bob Njagi and the friend also went to campaign for Bobi Wine. But now Bob Njagi and the friend are missing simply because they were campaigning for the opposition. That is Bobi Wine. But now Murkomen is safe because Murkomen was campaigning for Museveni. So what is the relationship? What is the relationship between Kenyan government and Ugandan government that the Kenyan government would allow a CS, a Kenyan, not just a CS, but a Kenyan interior CS to go and campaign for a neighboring country's president, somebody who has been in that position for 40 years. So what are they planning? What is it that they are planning to do? And you've heard Jamila saying that the speaker, that is Moses Wetangula. Wetangula even told people of, Uganda. Uganda and Luyas and Ugandans are like neighbors. So there are those Kenyans who are living in Uganda. So Musale Mudavadi was telling, I think if not Musala, then Wetangula, but I think it's Wetangula, was telling them, the people of Museveni, that they should vote for Museveni, and then coming 2027, they should come back and vote for William Samoei Ruto. Are you seeing how we are being played? Now, that is not enough. Let us listen to what Kaikai is saying here. Listen to this.
The level of, unfortunately, family feels the families and relatives are obviously going through very difficult times. And then the activists have been keeping the message up. You remember they had a demo today to the Ugandan embassy. At official level, quite frankly, it's tongue-in-cheek. We had government saying, we've asked the Ugandan government to tell us where they are. Really? Really? I mean, this is the same administration that did something unthinkable, handing over the leader of official opposition in Uganda. I describe him as such because he's a very senior senior opposition figure. I don't know where the nerves came from in this country that you could actually do that without thinking of the implications, without also thinking of who we are. I mean, Kenya is supposed to be the beacon of democracy in the region. We sometimes, actually many times, think we are ahead of other countries in the region. But we can't be ahead if we can do something as primitive as handing over a leader of opposition of the level of Kizza Besigye to Ugandan authorities. They came here to Riverside Drive. And Ugandan police actually conducted a security operation on Kenyan soil. I think what we are losing is pride. National pride is disappearing, which is why I think in official circles, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo are very small, because we are no longer that country that really appreciates what national pride is all about, where we sit in the international affairs. We are growing smaller and smaller, because as Bob Njagi and Oyo are disappearing in the west, that is in Kampala, our CS Interior is campaigning in the east, conducting a Kenyan-like campaign in the east, Jamila, in the east of Uganda.
So why is he campaigning for the president of another country?
Yes, what are we doing? Yes, it's just that we are starting to really lose some of those things. And there are things that are taught in school, but there's something that is also supposed to be natural wisdom and leadership that has to be exercised in terms of how a nation conducts itself. I think increasingly our neighbors do not respect us because they think, I mean, if they can collect Kizza Besigye from Riverside, who can they not collect from anywhere? And remember our weak reactions to the arrest of Boniface Mwangi in Tanzania. We are so held back by our internal politics, so much so that you now have, people in government who have allies elsewhere, and they're happy that Uganda is
sorting out
the opposition internally. That is smallness, and that's really shameful. Yet you can see how the globe is becoming complex. Diplomacy is a game of adults who can see bigger pictures. But we are playing in a really small league. Look around the region. We are having our neighbors that are emerging quite strong. And I'm not talking about Uganda and Tanzania. I'm talking about nations that really know what relations with other nations are about, what national interest looks like, what they need to do for their nations to be strong. I think we can't campaign in eastern Uganda and have our citizens who are campaigning in western Uganda arrested because they are not campaigning for the people you are campaigning for in eastern Uganda.
Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, for whom it must be distressing and still nothing. But like we're talking about East Africa, Tanzania is also, there's been, a few abductions there as well. Yeah.
The most recent one is former ambassador to Tanzanian ambassador to Cuba, Ambassador Polepole, who was abducted a few years ago. He was appointed by the CCM and he was ambassador in Cuba for a while. But then in the recent months, he's been quite vocal against the president of the presidency and the government of Mama Samia Suluhu, and then suddenly he disappears. His family has been going around police stations. His mother has spoken out. His brother has spoken out, saying that if he's dead, give him to us so we can bury him. Of course, the government has not spoken about this in terms of now where he is. And I think today their family was going to court to try and compel the government to produce him. And Yvon, you talk about how this is happening not just in Uganda and in Tanzania also, even speaking about Oyo and Njagi. Because when you talk about Ambassador Pole Pole, he's a former ambassador, you know, he's someone who has been in that space. But what would having Njagi and Oyo at a meeting where Bobi Wine is going to present his nomination papers make a difference in the Ugandan elections? Let them come, wafike, wafanye whatever they're doing and let them leave. And I'll talk a bit more about this in my memo. But we had our CS for Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen, and other colleagues in government across the border to Sebei and campaign for Yoweri Museveni and NRM party. And one of the things that they said was that mupige kura hapa in Uganda for President Museveni, and then in 2027 cross over and come to Kenya and vote for President William Ruto. They went, did their campaigns there for Museveni and came back and nothing happened to them. And Kipchumba Murkomen is the CS who's supposed to be following up and finding out where is Oyo and where is Njagi. And if you ask me, the commitment or the action by the Kenya government so far on this is almost lackluster. Because I just remember one statement by him saying that we are following up. Right. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is following up. Yeah. So what else? Because they've been, I think every single day since they disappeared, we've had maandamano, we've had statements from families, from human rights organizations. Today they went all the way to the Ugandan High Commission to protest about it. It was closed because Uganda is celebrating Independence Day today, but they left a statement. Nothing is being done on this end. These are Kenyans. Whatever the circumstances are there, these are Kenyans. Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo are Kenyans, and we need to do a bit more, try and find out how they are. In Tanzania, we are witnessing that. We've seen Ambassador Pole Pole. Of course, you talk about Tundu Lissu. There was another candidate also who has been kept out of the presidential race. Yeah. And she's been very vocal against anyone who's critical of her. But we're seeing something different in Tanzania, Yvonne, as I finish. There's a bit more now conversations online. And also a few pockets of protests here and there against what is going on, especially with the abductions. Abductions have been a big deal in Kenya. Remember, after last year, abductions, how many people have disappeared, how many have died. We're trying now to form to compensate them. That one is also hanging in the balance because of what we are seeing. But abducting people for just speaking out is a big deal, Yvonne. And you're starting to see those pockets of resistance here and there because of what we're seeing.
You know, truth of the matter is that it's very shameful. Let me just say that. It's very shameful. Like literally, let me still ask this question. What benefit would it be for, what value was Bob Njagi together with his friend added or going to add in Uganda? In Uganda, because Bobi Wine was presenting his nomination papers. Now, Bob Njagi, together with his friend, just went there to make sure that they witnessed the happening. So, are they people who are going to maybe to disrupt anything? They were not going to cause any chaos. So, why arrest them? Okay, why abduct them? That is the question. Why abduct them? You know, there are some of the things that these people normally do that sometimes you ask yourself, hii ni serikali yenye tuko nayo kweli ama kuna serikali nyingine yenye tunapaswa kusubiri ama kungojea ndio baadaye tuje tukasaidike. Anyway, let us listen to Kaikai's some Gituku's sense and then we continue.
In nearly 2 weeks since the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission restarted the continuous voter registration. During that time, the trips to registration stations has been low. We have listened to Kenyans. There are those who see the essence of registering and those that have given up on that important step to joining the high table of decision-making in our democracy. But wait, have we understood how consequential such a move would be? I look at the Constitution of Kenya that has defined our aspirations for the last 15 years, and in it, you will see the word democracy mentioned 6 times. At every mention, it is followed by words like social justice, participation of the people, regular free and fair elections, human rights, rule of law, and more, largely recognizing the importance of human dignity and the voice of each one of us when public decisions are being made. However, there are constitutions and then there are politicians. They come in many colors, but mostly they are defined by interests. And those interests can vary in as many ways as there are politicians. Sometimes those interests are ethnic, or is it tribal? They are economic, or is it commercial? Sometimes financial, but mostly about preserving power, however small in scope. And recently, we have seen the political class retreat to their interest cocoons to scheme on how best to capture seats in the upcoming by-elections. We have seen some candidates bought off, ceding space for alternative candidates. In some, we have seen a political party negotiating with aspirants to step down in exchange for government jobs and cash awards. We have also seen some candidates stepping down to preserve the pride of some kingpins in some regions. In all those concessions, the people have come at the end to listen to the decisions of men, yes, men, not women, who, after careful consideration and wide consultations, have decided to back the candidature of Mr. X. Quite democratic, isn't it? And so when you hear some young Kenyans saying they will not bother to register or even vote since there is nothing they can change, you may begin to understand where they are coming from. Yet Kenyans, we have so much power in our hands, more than we like to believe. Imagine in the year 2022, less than 7.2 million Kenyans decided the presidential election. A whole 8 million Kenyans were registered but did not take part in that general election. Nobody knows what their aspirations were or are. Today, IEBC targets to register another 6.3 million Kenyans who have been issued with identity cards. Even if IEBC were to succeed to register all of them, it will make no sense if they don't participate in the next general election. At a time political parties and loose alliances scheme to predetermine the outcomes of the upcoming by-elections, it may seem a system already rigged to the disadvantage of Kenyans. But there is hope. How about getting involved, including in those political parties, to stamp the authority of Kenyans in how they are governed all the way from the community level to political parties and the institutions of governance? You see, collectively, we have so much knowledge. At individual level, each of us knows something. Each of us has an idea of what the right thing to do should be. Each of us knows which road requires attention. Each of us knows something about our health sector, even if nobody asks. Each of us, indeed, makes a decision on what to eat, when to eat, where to eat, and with whom. How about taking the future of our country seriously? And if you cannot listen to me, perhaps you could listen to an elder.
Gentlemen, if you just hang around and don't register, you are useless. No, true. You can't be useful. You can't be any use because you are not participating in the development of Kenya. And if you are hanging around just eating, I mean, surely you can't be very meaningful or useful at all.
Be useful.
That statement from the late Mwai Kibaki has really caught me. And let me just say this: as we jump into Kaikai's kicker, there is this issue of the blockchain and blockchain versus IEBC. I think I'll talk more about that issue, the what's going on, or okay, how is the blockchain very much important or useful, is going to be useful more than the IEBC, because we've been having IEBC for a very long time, but there is no change. So maybe it's time for us to try something new, something different, and that is where now we are coming in with we are bringing in, or some people are bringing in, the issue of the blockchain. Now let's listen to Kaikai's kicker. And then we listen to Yvon and sum up so that you can also tell us what you think. This is Kaikai.
Kenyans have been reacting to the publication of a list of 60 nominees for national awards by the Joint Secretariat of the Parliamentary Honours Advisory Committee. The key word there is honours. But let's continue. The list has kicked up a major storm, especially inside Kenya's vibrant online community. Sections of the media have also greeted the list with outrage, with a standard newspaper stating without compromise, "Not our heroes." I sampled a few more of those online and offline reactions to try and find out why the outrage. I noticed that the common thread argued that for most of the listed members of the National Assembly and Senate, there's little to link the national award to the name. What did some of the proposed award receivers do to deserve the listing? Then some Kenyans raised issues with specific names in the honours list. In there, they said, were ex-convicts, shooters, public brawlers, drug dealers, and even wash experts. They offered little in terms of evidence, but I think they made their point. Now, every Jamhuri or Mashujaa Day, the nation pauses to celebrate men and women who have served Kenya with distinction. The president confers national honours, medals meant to recognize exemplary service and moral excellence. But when members of parliament routinely feature in those lists, Kenyans are right to ask, what exactly is being honoured? Let's be honest, this parliament is not exactly the temple of integrity it ought to be. From silence during debates to outright absenteeism, to corruption scandals, misuse of public funds, and even political grandstanding, the Kenyan public often views MPs with frustration rather than admiration. So when some of them receive national honours, it raises uncomfortable questions. Is the honour a reward for service or for political loyalty? Is it recognition of performance or compliance? Meanwhile, across the country, teachers teach without resources, nurses have saved lives in understaffed hospitals, and police officers serve with little recognition. These are the true pillars of national service. Yet, year after year, their names are rarely listed in the honours list. National honours should not be political decorations. They should be moral badges, earned and not granted. The Constitution expects leaders to be persons of integrity, serving the people selflessly. When parliamentarians who have faced questions of ethics, mismanagement, or corruption are decorated by the state, that medal itself loses meaning. Honours without honour cheapens the national moral currency. They tell Kenyans that power, and not principle, is what earns recognition. It is time to restore dignity to our system of national recognition. Honours should celebrate service, not status, integrity, not influence, and merit, not membership. Because in a country yearning for honest leadership, the true honour lies not in the medal, but in the integrity of those who wear it.
In our country right now, in this country that, in this 21st century and this government that we have, we don't talk about merits. We talk about political favorism, whereby a politician that has been favored is the one that is being awarded. It is not that you've qualified to get the reward or what, no. They don't look at that. Let us listen to Yvon Okwara's take as we wind up.
Health is not politics, and death is not a debate. Yet in Kiambu County, leaders are busy arguing over numbers while babies die. For more than 130 days now, doctors in Kiambu County have been on strike. That's over 4 months of strained hospitals, absent care, and mothers turned away when they need help the most. During that time, newborns have died. On Citizen TV this week, 2 women told their stories. One whose baby died hours after birth because there was no doctor available. Another whose premature infant struggled for life while her mother was told to personally watch over her baby in the neonatal ICU because there were no doctors to do it. No one weeps like that for no reason. But the county government insists all is well. The governor and his health executive deny any crisis. They even dispute the number of deaths. Oh, it's not 156 or 136 or whatever figure others have quoted. We have reduced a serious matter of death to splitting hairs and quibbling over numbers. So, Governor, what is the right number? How many babies must die before you call this a crisis? Governor Wamatangi, what is the acceptable threshold of death in your county? Because even one is too many. When you argue over figures, you miss the point entirely. Governor, you don't get to inflate or deflate grief to suit a political narrative. You don't measure tragedy by arithmetic. Meanwhile, neighboring Murang'a County and Kenyatta National Hospital are overwhelmed by patients feeling Kiambu's paralysis. If services are truly uninterrupted, why are women in labor crossing county lines just to find a doctor? This denial, this stubbornness, is not leadership. It's negligence, dressed up as public relations. You know, you don't fix a health crisis with press conferences at State of the County events. You fix it by sitting down with the doctors, by listening, by negotiating in good faith. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about doctors and salaries. It's also about patients. It's about a mother in pain, a baby who can't breathe, a family who loses faith in a system meant to protect them. Governor Kimani Wamatangi, your people are dying, not from lack of medicine, but from a lack of humility. Because somewhere along the way, politics and numbers became more important to you than the lives of your people. And that is the real crisis in Kiambu County.
I don't think if I have anything that I can add on this based on what Yvon Okwara have just said. Because, you know, these guys, they've taken our lives to be nothing. Like, our lives mean nothing to them. So, they are arguing. It's like the Kiambu governor is trying to argue with the doctors and the nurses the number of people, of children who have died. Like, oh, it's not 150, it's 130. So, okay, it's 150, 130, even if it's 130. Hao watu ni wengi sana. Hata kama ni watoto wawili. That number is too big to complain about, is too big to argue on. You can't argue based on the number of people that have died and expect anything good in return. You are a killer. It's like, wewe ni muuaji. Wacha tuelewane hapa. Ni kama wewe ni muuaji, umeamua kuua watoto wa watu. Alafu unasema ya kwamba mara sio watu 50, ni watu wawili. Hata hawa watu wawili ni watoto wa watu na ni binadamu. Chochote ambacho umekifanya ni umeua. So you are considered as a killer. After all, guys, that is just my thought. That is all I have for now. I also like to listen to your thoughts in the comment section. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell me where you are watching this video from. Until we meet again, I have been your host, Bombshell. Bingo.